Hello, I'm O Speaks, aka OT Speaks. If you're new here, please like, subscribe, share. Today, I'm going to be going over some corruption that's been going on over the last month or so. I did a live on the auto pen, and I did a live on several lives on how out of it Joe Biden was during his term. And the Senate is finally starting to do some actual oversight. I don't know if it's Senate or it's the House. We'll just say Congress. Congress is doing oversight, and they are starting to call in staffers who worked with and for Joe Biden. And when the staffers come in, I think you guys will be very interested to see what's going on. What's going on, Uncle L? And so I put together a presentation on a lot of different corruption that has gone over the last month. I've been doing different lives like Roblox, and then I did one on relationships. So I wanted to go back to this just to catch up to where I want to go next, because where I want to talk about next is what's going on, or what's going to be going on in Chicago. I think it was 54 people got shot and 6 or 7 unalived yesterday in my hometown of Chicago. So what Trump did in DC, he says he's going to do in Chicago. I'm interested to see how that happens, because it's not the same scenario. DC is federal and Chicago is not. It is a local state or Illinois is a state government, but it's a local thing. So I'm curious to see how he does it, if he can, if he does it, and then I want to make sure it's legit, because I don't know. I don't know if it's ever been done before in a capacity where they're not protecting federal property. So that's going to be my next live. But this one, I want to talk about government corruption, because I just love talking about government corruption. So I have a presentation. Let's get ready to pull this up. There we go. All right, let's go.
Former doctor walked out of a closed-door interview with the House Oversight Committee after pleading the Fifth. The panel subpoenaed Dr. Kevin O'Connor as part of an investigation into the former president's health while in office.
So it's the House, it's not Senate. So we'll just say, so the House is bringing in people. This is an oversight committee to say, hey, what went on while you were working for the president? The doctor who said, oh, no, he's great, he's healthy, pled the Fifth.
Earlier, he had requested the deposition be delayed and argued that doctor-patient privilege would prevent him from answering some of the questions. The committee denied his request, accusing Dr. O'Connor of trying to stonewall their investigation into Biden's mental and physical health.
This is unprecedented, and I think that this adds more fuel to the fire, that there was a cover-up. We'll do everything in our ability to be transparent with the media, be transparent with the American people. This is very serious. And this was an opportunity for Dr. O'Connor to defend his reputation, to defend his work.
The White House.
So even before we get to that, I want to, because you hear when you get arrested, they read you your Miranda rights. And all that is saying, hey, you don't have to talk. You have the right to remain silent. But this is what the Fifth Amendment actually is. Let me make this bigger. You don't need to see my mug for this. All right. So what it is protection against self-incrimination. So you don't want to incriminate yourself. That's what this is. People plead the Fifth when they think they may be asked questions that can harm them, that can actually jeopardize their freedom. So what it says, Fifth Amendment to the United States Constitution guarantees several fundamental rights, including protection against self-incrimination, the right to remain silent, the right to a grand jury indictment, protection from double jeopardy, the right to due process of law, the requirement of just compensation when private property is taken for public use, which would be an eminent domain. It applies to federal government and protects citizens from unfair treatment in legal proceedings. So with that said, let's go back here. Why that's important is, and it's not an admission of guilt. Let's be real clear on that. It's not an admission of guilt. What it is it's you're protecting yourself from saying something that can get you in trouble. What's interesting about this is all they're asking is, was Joe Biden cognizant? Was he fit to run the country? And they're saying, I don't want to incriminate myself, which is fascinating take. And we're going to see where this goes, because that was the doctor who said he was all good. Should be yes or no. But I don't want to incriminate myself suggests something different. Again, it doesn't suggest guilt. I don't know what other things he could be facing by answering those questions. I just found it interesting that he pled the fifth, because how are you threatened under indictment or threatened in any other way by answering the question?
Million documents approved with the Biden auto pen. This comes as a former aide to Jill Biden, Anthony Bernal. He's the latest to plead the fifth.
Did you ever advise President Joe Biden to pardon his son, Hunter Biden?
On the advice of counsel, I respectfully decline to answer the question pursuant to my Fifth Amendment rights under the Constitution.
Was President Joe Biden fit to exercise the duties of the president?
On the advice of counsel, I respectfully decline to answer the question pursuant to my Fifth Amendment rights.
Did any unelected official or family member of President Joe Biden execute the duties of the presidency?
Respectfully decline to answer the question.
Did President Joe Biden ever instruct you to lie regarding his health at any time?
On the advice of counsel, I respectfully decline to answer the question.
Okay, so that's Jill Biden's aide. So now we have Joe Biden's doctor and Jill Biden's aide. This one to me is, to me, it would be a no-brainer, because it's not like they could say, well, you were lying if you give your opinion on whether or not he was fit to run the country. And that's what he was asked. So you heard the questions. They're pretty straightforward. Was he fit to run, or was he fit to, run the country? You plead the fifth? That's an opinionated question. It's not like you can be held accountable for what you say unless there's something out there that we don't know. I don't know.
Okay, I think you get the point. There's a lot of that pleading the fifth. House Oversight Committee member Congressman Pat Fallon joins me now. Congressman, Biden says he made all the decisions with the auto pen. He made them himself. Are you okay with that explanation?
Stuart, absolutely not, because if he really did, all of his aides would be more than willing to just come forward and answer the questions and not invoke the fifth. I mean, how are you going to incriminate yourself when you're just asked a question about somebody else and in a matter that's really more political moving forward? That's why our office is going to file legislation to compel the use of the auto pen only when you're signing, a letter from 8-year-old Cade from Waco, Texas, kind of thing. If it has force of law or an executive order and it's going to require action of the federal government, it should be signed by the hand of the president of the United States, period, end of story, full stop.
And that's what I've been saying since this whole auto pen thing came out. How you doing, Ms. KTC? I don't understand why this wasn't established earlier. I'm glad that they're trying to put through legislation to limit that auto pen usage, because it shouldn't be done on executive orders. It shouldn't be done on the passing of laws. It just doesn't make sense. It's never made sense. I know it's been done a lot, but Joe Biden took it to the next level, to the point where he wouldn't even be in DC when he was supposedly signing stuff with the auto pen. So if you're present, cool, makes sense. Auto pen, my hand hurts. I got a cramp in my hand. If you authorize it and say, okay, I am now authorizing Tulsi Gabbard to whatever you're doing, the president should know about it. And we now know the president didn't know about a lot of these incidents.
Well, unfortunately, that was quick. This is the second witness that we've brought in via subpoena for a deposition that has pled the fifth, and they've stated they're not going to answer questions. I want to read the first two questions, just so everyone knows. These are the types of questions we asked. Was Joe Biden fit to exercise the duties of the president? He pled the fifth. Second question, did any unelected official or family member execute the duties of the presidency? And this is Joe Biden's chief of staff. Did any unelected officials or family members ever execute the duties of the presidency? Simple question. He knew he was going to be asked that. Everybody in America wants to know that. He pled the fifth. So we're going to continue our investigation. I think that the American people are concerned. They're concerned that there were people making decisions in the White House that that were not only unelected, but no one to this day knows who they were. We believe there was illegal use of the auto pen. We're going to continue to bring these people in, give them an opportunity to answer questions.
So again, I understand that the doctor doing it because there can be an opposing opinion that could suggest that he knew Biden was in decline and said that he wasn't. Okay, I get the doctor. This other guy was just Jill Biden. That was her aide. How can he be self-incriminating? If you answer that question or those two questions, was there anyone else making decisions for Joe Biden? That should be a no outright. To me, it's weird that he would say, I can't answer that. I might incriminate myself. How? How, unless there were other people? What's going on, Lester? It's funny to me. I find it fascinating that anyone can answer that question anything other than no, unless there's something there. And to me, that's really weird. Again, the doctor, cool, I get it. I do. But an opinion? How are you going to incriminate yourself by giving an opinion?
Breaking news right now. We were watching the testimony of this woman here, Annie Tomasini. She's the former senior advisor to President Joe Biden. She was the third person set to appear before James Comer's committee. She has now taken the fifth. So the doctor, the aide to Joe Biden, and now
this is great.
Ms. Tomasini have all done the same behind closed doors. Now, James Comer is the chairman of the committee, the Republican out of Kentucky. He said this in a statement. It's a long statement. I'll just read one line. There is now a pattern of key Biden confidants seeking to shield themselves from criminal liability for this potential conspiracy. End quote there. We'll see who goes next. They have put out a series of videos later in the day of their witnesses pleading the fifth and sitting next to their attorneys. I would imagine Comer's committee is going to do the same thing at some point today as well. So
that's Joe Biden's senior advisor, KTC. She's like, what is going on? Wait a minute. So that is now three very high officials, very high, just saying, I don't want to answer these questions. It can incriminate me. How? How can it incriminate you to answer opinionated questions? They're asking them all the same questions. Do you believe Joe Biden was fit to run the country, to be president? I don't want to incriminate myself. How? Thank you, KTC. How can you incriminate yourself by saying yes or no? Now, yes. And if it comes out that you guys were doing some shady stuff, I can see how that can incriminate you. But if you say no, I just don't. I don't understand. To me, this is very interesting. Very interesting.
that's the latest from the Hill. Republicans trying to get something, and they were left with pretty much nothing.
President Biden's former chief of staff, Ron Klain, there, dodging reporter questions on Capitol Hill Thursday. He might have been tired after answering 5 hours worth of questions in a closed-door deposition regarding President Biden's mental fitness. Those questions came from the House Oversight Committee. Let's bring in Jonathan Fahey, former DHS Deputy Assistant Secretary and former Acting Director of ICE. Jonathan, we understand that Ron Klain actually answered the committee questions, which...
All right. Now we're getting somewhere. Finally, somebody who just answered questions. He's the former chief of staff. He left office, didn't finish his job there. We don't know why. Maybe he has an opinion. And maybe that's why he left. Because the guy who came in behind him is set to be brought in for his deposition. And it's September. Oh, next week. The 10th, I believe it is. So when that guy comes in, we'll see what he says. If he pleads the fifth, there's something going on. I mean, I believe there is anyway, but it'll be pretty solidified if you have 4 people saying, I can't speak or I can incriminate myself. This guy spoke for 5 hours, which tells me he left for a reason. And it also tells me that he may be somebody who can testify and hopefully get something. How you doing, Amber C?
Is getting to be unusual these days in Washington.
Yeah, that was surprising, at least to me, because we know his doctor took the fifth. We know, I think the deputy chief of staff took the fifth. I believe the First Lady's chief of staff took the fifth, meaning they all refused to testify on grounds that it may incriminate them. So it is interesting that he testified. I think he's in a little bit of a different situation because, remember, he left his role as chief of staff, I believe, in February of 2023. So he sort of has plausible deniability for sort of the decline of President Biden and could claim he wasn't as low functioning when he left and didn't really see all of these things. So I think that makes it a little different, although it is surprising that he did sit, take the questions, and, you know, I don't know all the answers, but we heard some of the things he talked about.
But the fact that a couple of the other people that they have brought or tried to bring in front of them took the fifth, you know, self-incrimination. You obviously can avoid self-incrimination in this country under our Constitution. But what does that say to you about the people like former President Biden's doctor?
Yeah, it's pretty interesting because, yeah, you're right. You can refuse to testify if you have a reasonable belief that your answer would tend to incriminate you. It doesn't allow you to not testify if it would harm somebody else, nor does it prevent you from having to testify if it would embarrass you or make you look bad. So this means they at least have asserted they have a good faith reason to believe that their answers may incriminate them. So that's pretty interesting. And the doctor also asserted the doctor-patient privilege, which again only protects communications between the patient, Joe Biden, and the doctor, not all the stuff swirling around him. So it'll be very interesting to see how these pan out. But it's really not the end of the road by just taking the fifth. There are a lot of tools that the House can deploy, as well as DOJ can deploy, to ensure these people ultimately testify.
But
and the president's a little bit different. Actually, politicians are a little bit different. They have to, well, you know, I don't know if they have to disclose it. Because I don't think Obama always disclosed his medical. I'm going to look into that and get back on that one. I thought that the people had a right to know. I'm gonna have to look into that because I'm not sure. I don't want to say something that's wrong. I just thought that you don't have all the same privacies as a normal citizen, especially when it comes to HIPAA. I'm gonna look into that.
Case of the doctor, can he say, look, he was my patient and doctor-patient privilege prevents me from disclosing what we talked about or how he was?
Yeah, that only is going to prevent talking about their discussions with each other. If there was a larger scheme to hide his health, to change anything in records and things that were made public with staffers and other people, that would not be protected under the doctor-patient privilege. It's just solely the communications. So my guess is right now the House is probably negotiating with his attorneys to carve out the areas that he will testify about and probably limit what he talked to President Biden about alone. But the rest of it is fair game. And if this doctor presses on, you know, ultimately they can immunize him. If he doesn't comply, then he can be held in contempt, a la Steve Bannon and Peter Navarro under the last administration for not testifying. So these witnesses do really bear some risk if they're going to proceed with taking the fifth. But again, it's quite interesting. But clearly they don't have a lot of great things to say about what was going on with Joe Biden, his health, and I'm sure what they saw was even worse than we saw, which was a person that was incredibly low functioning towards the end of his presidency.
Not even towards the end. To Lester's point, we saw him fall off the bike. That was in the very beginning. So it's not like it was a surprise. This wasn't a surprise that he was on the decline. When he was running the first time, he ran from home. Now they used COVID as an excuse, but we saw that the little crowds he was getting, they were supposedly social distancing because of his age. I don't know. So it appears as if the president does not have to disclose. This is interesting. I did not know that. So no, there is no legal requirement for a president to disclose health issues. However, there's a strong tradition for presidents and their administrations to release some information. I don't know what that means, particularly after annual physicals to reassure the public that the president's fit for office. While the public's interest in knowing the president's health status, it is balanced against the president's right to medical privacy. So I guess there is some HIPAA stuff. Yeah, it says there's no federal mandate. Federal law does not require them to share. So, and whatever they do share is strictly voluntary. Interesting. Well, now we know. I didn't want to speak out of turn and say he doesn't have the right to privacy, because that's what I thought.
And of his presidency.
Oh, I used to go home
Listen to this.
on the train in the period that I was still in the Senate. Anyway.
So this is the deposition that was released. So during his presidency, there was an investigation into Trump or into Biden about his classified documents. And a lot of them were during his Senate time frame. All the confidential stuff that he actually took, and his name was Robert Hur, and he found that Biden actually did break the law. He exposed highly confidential information and documents and classified documents, but he declared that Biden was too old and he didn't think he could win a prosecution because the jury would be sympathetic to an old, forgetful man. So immediately, the Republicans were calling for them to release the deposition so the public can hear what the special prosecutor heard, and they wouldn't release them. Well, we now have them. So this was Biden answering questions during his deposition, and you can hear why they said he's just an old man who doesn't remember anything. The problem was he forgot when his son died. He forgot when he was doing things with those documents. When he was talking about the Senate, he was not. He was the vice president. So he just doesn't remember anything. And this is going back to the beginning of his term. I want to say maybe within the first few months. Now, if you don't remember that stuff, how do you then go on to run the country for the next 3 years? Because that's what ended up happening. And then you were about to run again, and you're telling me nobody noticed? He doesn't know when his own son passed away? It's sad. I get that, but you can't be running. Who was running the White House? That's the most important question here. Because if it wasn't him, the people elected a man to run this country for 4 years, and he did not run it. That is literally a coup, because somebody else took over the country without our knowledge and passed bills, passed executive orders, and made decisions of war in Ukraine and Israel. Like, what was going on? Who was making these decisions? Because they weren't voted. They weren't supposed to be making these decisions. What does that sound? Oh, I'm sorry. I'm getting a beeping in my ear. My son was trying to request more screen time on his iPad. But we elected a man who, it appears, did not run this country. Unelected officials, staffers, just random people were running the country. A few months ago, I did a story in one of my lives about a staffer. She was nobody. She's just a regular staffer. I don't know what maybe she was an admin or something. She was allowed to use the auto pen. I don't know what she said. It wasn't just her. She said there were some of us were able to use the auto pen, which means we have some random lady, nobody knows who she is, was able to pass a bill. What was she doing with the auto pen? Was she able to write her own executive order? You know how insane that is? They still haven't just sat this old man down and asked him, did you pardon Fauci? Yes or no? Did you pardon your son? We all know he pardoned his son because he actually spoke on that. But what about the rest of his family members? What about Liz Cheney? There were several people. What about Adam Schiff? He pardoned everyone on the January 6th committee, not just for that period, for years before that. So it covered their entire investigation, so that we don't know if they were even being honest about that. All they do is sit him down and ask him. Instead, they asked him, "Did you do all the pardons or did you sign off on all of your pardons?" Of course, you're going to say yes. What are you going to say? No. They didn't get specific, and I don't like that. I don't understand why they wouldn't just get specific. But now he doesn't remember anything. He doesn't even remember when his own son died. So the longer they wait, the further we get away from the truth. And I believe, I could be wrong, that he wasn't running this country. I would love to know who was. Were they elected? Was it at least somebody in Congress? Like, was it at least somebody that we know of? Because it could be Jill Biden. And that would explain why her chief of staff or advisor, whatever, wouldn't pled the fifth, wouldn't testify.
Low functioning towards the end of his presidency.
Bo, I used to go home on the train in the period that I was still in the Senate. Anyway, do you remember?
I have no idea why you would want to put that in the document, but at this
it's
point,
a warning.
It's not. Well, but
I mean,
why put the warning?
Republicans are going to seize on it,
why
but
put the warning in
it is.
there?
I mean, did it strike you as odd? I mean, it kind of seems
I
completely
mean,
beyond the scope of the conversation,
look,
which is whether he willfully
no,
retained classified
I don't know if it's odd because the White House pushback was, well, you know, the day he did his interview, it was the day after the Israel-Hamas war started. So are you?
It was very well known that he would take the train from D.C. I think all the way up to Delaware. I don't remember exactly where. I don't want to make up something, but he would take the train when in his early days of the Senate. He was talking like it was recent, and there was a lot of overlap there. He hasn't ridden a train in God knows how long, but he didn't know that. That's the problem. That's why they're trying to figure out, okay, who was running this country. It shouldn't be a difficult question to get answered.
Telling me that the president's mental faculties are mostly diminished when he's dealing with a crisis? This
that's
is
not a
vital.
good response. That's like saying he hadn't slept. I understand.
Robert Hur wrote in a report, I can't even charge this man because if I put him in front of a jury, they're going to say, oh, this is just a confused old man. We could never get a conviction. We had official government evidence that he was in cognitive decline. And what did the White House do? They smeared Robert Hur. They smeared him.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not disagreeing with
do you not feel lied to? Do you guys, the Democrats who ran your party, who ran the White House, the people who lied to you as a journalist, do you not feel any sense of outrage about Green or anybody else in the line? They lied to you guys.
You know.
So this is Abby Phillips. She'd probably be the next one to lose her job at CNN. She's always super skeptical on the real stories. And she doesn't ask any questions on the fake stories. It's really interesting. So this is just her being a hypocrite, like she was about to do there.
This seems to be kind of also another litmus test for how to be in MAGA world. I mean, is this the new reality for this MAGA era of politicians, that they don't back down when they're confronted with facts? It's clear as day. The FBI put out statistics. Crime is going down. You don't have to twist the facts.
The FBI quietly comes out with this new data that shows actually violent crime is up 4.5% during that time frame.
The only person making an accusation that people are not getting what they've asked for is Trump, falsely claiming that the administration is withholding resources because of political affiliation. That is just not true.
Well, the Federal Emergency Management Agency is facing major backlash after confirming reports that a supervisor ordered disaster relief workers to avoid homes with Trump yard signs.
There's actually not any evidence linking any of Hunter Biden's wrongdoings to Joe Biden. You are incorrect. You think that Biden would actually pardon Hunter Biden, despite him saying
Yes, as a father, he would.
No.
He's going to get pardoned by his dad. There's no question about that.
The president has ruled out pardoning his son.
Breaking news. President Biden has just pardoned his son.
So I only put that in there because she always does that. She always says there's no evidence for stuff. What's weird is it'll be stuff that I know. Who am I? Why do I know more than a CNN panel lead? She leads panels. She's a journalist. And she never knows anything, only when it comes to the left. And she will spread narratives on the right. So here she is again. John Bolton worked for the president for like 6 months, and you're going to hear why he did, which is actually genius. But John Bolton is a war hawk. That's just what he is. He just got his home raided last week, last week. They don't know. Nobody's really been specific as to why, but there's questions about classified documents. So this is her talking about that. Again, she just all of a sudden she becomes skeptical.
There is no evidence.
No evidence
that there was some top-down order of political retribution in either the Obama or the Biden administrations. I'll concede to you that Donald
Trump
made
up like the Russian hoax, and they used information to go after Donald Trump to try to undermine his entire presidency. Okay. And they all signed their names to it.
Are you going to give me a second to talk or no?
No, but like you can't say that didn't happen.
Listen,
it happened.
The Russia hoax. First of all, was Donald Trump prosecuted?
They did it to impeach
was he
him.
prosecuted?
He was impeached over it.
Okay, so he.
That's a big deal. It's called overthrowing the will of the people.
First of all,
they're mocking this dude, and he's right. And she said, "Well, he wasn't prosecuted." Everything that they went after Trump for was on the basis that he colluded with Russians or he got something through Russians. Even when you look at the Leticia James case in New York, it was based on whether or not he was having dealings in Russia as well, and he was overstating his properties, and everything had to do with Russia. And here she is, still in denial. How you doing, Miss Eve? Still in denial over this. It's now a fact. Tulsi Gabbard released everything. They had Obama literally asking them for a new assessment when the assessment was that there was no Russian interference in the 2016 election. And she's still in denial of this. We know this now. It's not even a question. And here she is saying there's no proof.
He was impeached over his handling of Ukraine. He was not impeached over the Russia investigation.
A perfectly good phone call, which, by the way, became accurate on Hunter Biden.
The second thing is, let me just read to you a list of people that Donald Trump and his top cabinet secretaries have said are going to be the subject of investigations. The special counsel Jack Smith, former FBI director James Comey, former CIA director John Brennan, Senator Adam Schiff.
He's calling them scumbags. Jack Smith is already under investigation. They found he was looking for crimes. They didn't have a crime. There was no prerequisite for what he was doing. James Comey literally threatened the president's life. John Brennan lied. He created a new document that was, so when Obama asked for a new assessment, John Brennan is the one who created it. Adam Schiff lied every single day and said he knew the proof. He saw the proof, but because he was in the House Intelligence Committee, he couldn't let us know. But it'll come out sooner or later that the Russian hoax, now we know is a hoax, that Russia did interfere. Donald Trump did have something to do with it, and he just lied nonstop. Leticia James ran for AG in New York on getting Trump. So all these people did stuff. Obama was the one who asked for a new assessment. I don't think he's going to get any charges. I think he's going to throw Brennan under the bus. Governor Murphy was another one. All right, so between him, there were several governors who were lying about what happened during the election. They made it seem like Trump was just making up stuff when it came to the voting errors that they were finding. Turns out that they weren't. There was really issues going on, but they just lied. They outright lied. I don't know what Monica McCliver did. I don't know what she did. Act Blue, completely corrupt. They were funneling money through for Democrats into every. They were essentially money laundering, and then reusing money instead of giving the money back. So once you're done with a campaign, you're not allowed to just use it for someone else. They were doing that. Now I believe the House of Representatives, the Speaker is allowed to do that. I don't know exactly how that works, but Act Blue is definitely corrupt, and they were funneling George Soros money too. The Federal Reserve Governor Lisa Cook, she was just fired a couple days ago. So all these people, yes, there's something that they were doing to be investigated. It's not just a conspiracy.
AG Leticia James,
They lied.
President Barack Obama,
they abused their power.
Governor Phil Murphy,
love this
and
list.
Representative
Give me a
Monica
pom-pom over here.
McCabe.
Let's
So
go.
there is a list that comes right from the top. I'm not making this up.
They put themselves on the list because they weaponized the government to attack their political opponents.
So in one case, let me just say, in one case, you all are making connections based on conjecture. In another case, Donald Trump is just saying the thing. So
I was here when they were going after him, just making up reasons to go after him. I was here saying, yeah, no, this is not good. Because once they get out of power and then they start getting gone after, they're going to be crying. Here we are. Here we are. We know the stuff that these people did, but they're going to cry foul and act like this is political retribution. Not that they actually did something wrong.
So those are two very different situations. Okay, the IRS.
So Obama didn't know what was going on in his government? He didn't know what his.
If you can provide me proof that Barack Obama directed the IRS to go after Tea Party groups,
The AG under Barack Obama was Eric Holder. They've already admitted that they were going after Christian organizations and that the IRS was not approving their 501c3 status. 501c3. I think I'm saying that right. They were intentionally withholding this stuff. This is not up for debate. Everybody knows this, and she's asking for proof now. This happened in like 2010. Like I don't. She's pretending to not know things that she has to have known. She has to have known. This was a huge deal back then, but it was admitted to. Let's see, IRS. I'm going to look it up real quick. It's just insane that a supposed journalist who's leading these panels every night is pretending like she doesn't know what she was doing. Obama. Now, she's sitting here on CNN today, not literally today, but within the last week, saying this. Now, I want you guys to look at this because she's relying on people to not remember what actually happened. The problem is the IRS in 2017 literally apologized for aggressive scrutiny of conservative groups. They didn't just do it. She has to know this. If I know this, she has to know this. An illegal settlement. So this was adjudicated, like, to hear her say this is offensive. It was settled. This is not up for debate anymore. In 2 cases, there were settlements. They apologized. That was part of the settlement. IRS, you need to apologize for discriminating. It's not right. So it has to be sincere. They expressed their sincere apology for mistreating a conservative organization called Linchpins of Liberty, along with 40 other conservative groups in their applications for tax-exempt status. That's what I was talking about. I think I said 501, whatever it is. It's not up for debate. They did it. In a second case, NorCal Tea Party Patriots and 427 other groups reached a substantial settlement with the IRS. So here she is asking for proof in 2025. Lady, you don't know this? How do I know this? But you don't know this. This is insane that she
concede that to you.
Is the government to attack their political opponents?
So in one case, let me just say, in one case, you all are making connections based on conjecture. In another case, Donald Trump is just saying the thing. So those are 2 very different situations. Okay, the IRS.
So Obama didn't know what was going on in his government? He didn't know what his
if you can provide me proof that Barack Obama directed the IRS to go after Tea Party groups, I will concede that to you immediately.
If you can provide me proof.
Eric Holder called himself Obama's wingman. It's not even up for debate. He knew about it. So her question was specific. Can you say that he directed them to? Or I can say he looked the other way and knew it happened because everybody knew it happened. It's not. This is not up for debate. So she phrases it in a way, well, how do you know he had something to do with it? It's his administration. If Trump's administration was doing it, I guarantee she would be saying Trump's IRS is going after liberal organizations. I guarantee it. You know how I can guarantee it? Because she's done it about everything else. But this is what the media does. They're dishonest. They spin narratives. They pretend things didn't happen that we saw happen.
Proof doesn't exist. That proof does not exist. Okay, that is the only point that I'm making.
But I don't think he cared about the classification system.
So this, ironically, is Bolton on Donald Trump's home being raided. I think in I don't remember what year it was, 21, maybe 22. He had a lot to say about that, and now his home is being raided for the exact same thing.
I don't think he appreciated the sensitivity of this information, and he didn't appreciate the sensitivity of how it was often acquired, the so-called sources and methods. So this had been briefed to him before I arrived. It was repeated frequently. I think it simply had no impact on him whatever.
There's a couple of different ways that people think about this, and people who are not friendly to the president who think about what's happened here. And one of them is, Donald Trump, master thief, criminal, running some kind of elaborate conspiracy to bring things out of the White House and keep them secret for potentially for political or financial gain. There are other people who his attitude is Trump is chaotic. He's careless. He's not that smart. He took these things almost by mistake, and now he's basically stamping his feet and saying they're mine. I don't want to give them up. Give me a sense of where you think the truth lies with respect to Trump's intelligence, carelessness, and the degree to which he might have brought motive to bear on taking these documents out of the White House and keeping them for this long at Mar-a-Lago.
Well, it's very hard to speculate on motive other than that he liked cool things. He saw things so he wanted to take them, and he was pretty much able to take them, and not just on classified information matters, on all kinds of things that crossed his desk. Some days he liked to eat a lot of French fries. Some days he took classified documents. He wanted them. Why did he want them? Because he could get them.
He's mad because he was used. He was used. That's what this all comes down to. And he really hates Trump now. He was all rah-rah before 2016. But Trump hired him, used him, fired him. And he doesn't like that. Okay, whatever.
Well, I'm reminded of something that I heard someone say after the Mar-a-Lago raid. And the statement was, everybody ought to just calm down, whether you're pro-Trump or anti-Trump, and let the process work its way through. That was said by John Bolton himself after the Mar-a-Lago raid on Trump. Look, I try not to engage too much in conjecture on these things. All we really know is what Caitlin just told us, that this is related to an investigation regarding information he put in his book. We know that they're searching for things, and that's it. That's what we know. And so Ambassador Bolton's previous views on this were that processes should be allowed to work their way through. I assume this one will work its way through. And if he has not disclosed any classified information, that will be fine and good, and we'll talk about that. And if he has, I'm sure we'll talk about it.
So something happened where he wrote in his book something that he shouldn't have known. A lot of times, high-level officials, especially when it comes to defense, they get kept in the loop, and they still get briefings, and they still keep they maintain their classification, their status. So they still have access to classified documents because they have to in order to be briefed on them. Trump pulled his status, I want to say as soon as he got in this year. I think it was January 6th, maybe the 7th. He pulled his classifications. He pulled a lot of other people's classifications. Andrew McCabe, James Clapper, Brennan, all the former higher ups. He pulled all their classifications, so they no longer have a right to have this information. Well, Bolton put out a book where it looks like he has information that he shouldn't have had. And that's what this looks like. I'm not saying that's what this is. I don't know for sure because they haven't really gotten really specific yet.
It's chilling.
It's
it really
chilling.
is.
Chilling.
Listen, John Bolton and I disagreed on many things back in the days when I was serving in public office. But I don't think very many people that know John Bolton would argue that his beliefs were intellectually sound. You could disagree with him, and that he gave a lot to this country in terms of time and his intellect and his work ethic. And clearly this is retribution. Clearly this is using the FBI in a way that not only tarnishes the FBI, but it tarnishes our country. I mean, this is what they do in countries where they don't have rule of law.
We've been saying this since they started going after Trump. You guys are going after a president. This guy's not a president. He really isn't. He's never even been close. He's been an advisor for most of it. He's been a diplomat. And she's acting like he's the president. But they're okay with the president going through this. Just not any of their people. Whatever.
This is what happens when despots take over, like Putin. And John Bolton has always been critical of how, I mean, he about lost it when Trump wanted to invite the Taliban to Camp David. It's chilling. Now, do I think they're ever going to have evidence to convict this man of anything in a court of law with a jury? No, they won't. But they can make him miserable.
How does she know? How does she know? She wasn't saying that when Trump was going through what he was saying. She was saying, I hope this isn't true. You know, there's no way to know. Now she's saying, no, Bolton didn't do anything. What, are you sleeping with him? Are you with him 24 hours? Like, how do you know?
This was an investigation that was ordered by FBI Director Kash Patel, a Trump administration official, telling the Post, but asking to remain anonymous. Now, what's interesting is right before this took place, FBI Director Kash Patel posted this cryptic message on social media as he said, quote, "No one is above the law. FBI agents on a mission."
I think a lot of Republicans right now just wish Kash Patel, Tulsi Gabbard, and a number of other Trump nominees would just go away.
I'll bet you do wish that. I'll bet you do wish that.
When I hired him, he served a good purpose because, as you know, he was one of the people that forced Bush to do the ridiculous bombings in the Middle East.
Okay, so listen to this. This is actually genius. And Trump thought to do this. And you'll hear about how he's dumb and he's an idiot, he's a buffoon, he's whatever you want to call him. That's fine. I don't care what you think of him. But when it comes to negotiation, listen to how he used Bolton. And he's been saying this for a long time now, which is why Bolton hates his guts now.
Bolton, he wants to always kill people, and he's very bad at what he does. But he worked out great for me because every time he doesn't talk, he's like a very quiet person, except on television. If he could say something bad about Trump, he'll always do that. But he really doesn't talk. He's quiet. And I'd walk into a room with him with a foreign country, and the foreign country would give me everything because they said, oh no, they're going to get blown up because John Bolton's there.
Genius. He literally used the guy for his reputation. Don't speak, don't say anything. I just need you to walk in the room with me so that I can intimidate these dictators. Because they know he's a war hawk. He's always been. His first response to pretty much everything is, let's go in. Let's go in and take him out. So he used him just for the optics. That's phenomenal. Phenomenal negotiating.
On television, if he could say something bad about Trump, he'll always do that. But he really doesn't talk. He's quiet. And I'd walk into a room with him with a foreign country, and the foreign country would give me everything because they said, oh no, they're going to get blown up because John Bolton's there. He's not a smart guy, but he could be a very unpatriotic guy. I mean, we're going to find out. I know nothing about it. I just saw it this morning. They did a raid.
So this is a live shot of his
office in Washington, D.C., and we're looking right now, per our colleagues from Fox Digital on the scene, a couple of FBI agents loading some stuff into cars and leaving the scene. So clearly not as big of a presence at his Bethesda home, but notable that he was spotted at his office earlier today. We're told, I want to be very clear, that he's not facing any charges at this moment. He is not in custody. He is not under arrest at this moment.
This might have nothing to do with classified documents or about classified intelligence that Bolton printed in his book. Trump Justice Insider Mike Davis says Democrats, rhinos, and reporters who think this raid on John Bolton is about his book will be very embarrassed when the search warrant becomes public. Primetime's hearing Bolton was making a lot of money from overseas and may have been trafficking in intelligence. That wouldn't be putting America first. Constitutional scholar Jonathan Turley, who we just heard from, says Bolton could be looking at up to 20 years in prison.
So what he's saying, and if this is true, I mean, that really changes everything. Because he's saying this is not about classified information, but he could be passing on intel. That's not good. That's really not good.
So Bolton should take his own advice and take a big, beautiful, deep breath.
I think it's important that everybody take a deep breath here. This is a very serious matter. Can't overemphasize.
So this guy, this is during the Mar-a-Lago raid. His name is Andrew McCabe. Another one of these three-letter people, FBI or CIA, I don't remember. So this is his opinion on Trump's Mar-a-Lago raid versus Bolton's house raid.
I see you, John. How big of a deal this would have been within the Department of Justice and the FBI. This is not, a couple of agents showing up at some judge's door in the middle of the night to get an emergency warrant. This is something that would have been planned out and reevaluated and legally examined from every possible angle by the entirety of the leadership structure of both organizations. So let's remember that to get a search warrant in any case, whether it's you or I or the former president, you have to go before a federal judge and convince that judge that there is probable cause to believe both that a federal crime has been committed and that evidence of that crime is contained within the space you have.
Again, he said any case. This is all about Trump here. Let's see what happens when it switches over and we fast forward a few years.
Described in your warrant request. So we have, in this situation, a federal judge who made that determination, giving the agents authority to enter that premises and search every part of the premises that might contain the items that are specifically described in the warrant.
I have absolutely no doubt that Mr. Bolton will have very good counsel, and they will attack this in a full-throated and complete way, as they should, right? So we know that Mr. Bolton has said critical things about the president. That's not illegal. That's not a crime. That's pretty squarely within your First Amendment right in this country. And in fact, you shouldn't be. You're not supposed to be. The Department of Justice and the FBI have all kinds of policies absolutely prohibiting investigating people for the exercise of their First Amendment rights.
You see what he's doing? He's applying what he thinks, which is Trump doesn't like him because the guy talks about him. And he's just making that the case. Like he's got a First Amendment right, say whatever he wants. Who said he didn't? Who said that this was about the First Amendment? Who said this was about critiquing? This is why these people are slick. This is how they... clear narrative creation here. Who said this had anything to do with the First Amendment? Just now, well, not just now, but a couple of years ago, you see it up there on the top. He's saying this has to still go through a federal judge. This is not to be taken lightly. You can't just show up at somebody's house. Now he's saying that people are showing up to somebody's house. Not because he did anything, but because he spoke. Literally just making this up.
And so if that's what's going on here, and there's all kinds of reasons to believe that that might be the true motivation.
So what happened to the federal judges that you were just talking about that they had to go through? Are they corrupt too? Do they not like that Bolton was talking about Trump? He just explained the whole system up top. That's only because it was about Trump. Now that it's about somebody that he likes, another warmonger, now he's defending him and saying it's just free speech.
We know that the president is embarked on a pretty extensive effort to go after his perceived enemies. To
he said he was
infamous
running on
revenge
retribution.
tours.
Yeah.
Running on retribution.
That's right. I am your retribution. That's what he said.
When he said, I am your retribution, he was talking to you, the American people, saying, I am your retribution for all the corruption that you guys have dealt with. He wasn't saying, I'm going to go after my political enemies. That's not what he was saying. He was talking to the American people. But they spin it. And it's not like he doesn't know what he's doing. The dude was in the FBI or CIA, one of the two. Either way, he was smarter than this. Or is he? This is just spin.
His supporters. So there's all kinds of reasons, I think, to look at this with a jaundiced eye and to be aware of the fact that there is more than just the probable cause articulated in this search warrant. There is this very fraught relationship between the two, and the president's history of going after people using the levers of power that he has access to, particularly the Department of Justice, to go after people he doesn't like.
There was like 40 people gone after in the Trump administration. And they did that just so they can say Trump is running a corrupt administration. Like 40 of them. And I may be underselling that number. Maybe more than that. They were arresting people, putting them in prison, putting them in jail. People who wouldn't refuse to testify, and it turns out they would be testifying over nothing. They put them in jail. And he's saying that Trump has the history of going after political foes. This is amazing. So this guy, this is Clapper, James Clapper. He's going to be talking about whether or not Trump was spied on back in the day. And it's going to go back and forth between what's happening now and what was happening. This is another interesting one.
The Attorney General would say such a thing. He just has a feeling that there was spying against the campaign. We're losing sight here of what started all this, and that was the Russian meddling, the Russian interference in our election process. And the Russians pose a profound threat to this country.
So you guys might remember, or they had, I think it was like 35 or 50 former intel agents sign a thing saying that there was Russian collusion. He was one of the top guys at that time. Brennan wrote it, but he was there. He was in the room when Obama asked for that document. And then they gave it to Joe Biden, and Joe Biden, he even pulled it out during one of the debates and said, 50 intelligence agencies agree with me. They say he's a liar. Turns out all of it was a lie. We now know that for sure. So this guy's about to break that down.
So that's from no evidence to profound threat. That's quite a leap. And what about President Obama? A declassified document dated December 9th, 2016, reveals the intel community was working to produce a new assessment per Obama's request and seeking participation from the CIA, FBI, NSA, and DHS. Around that same time, here's what President Obama was saying publicly.
When I look back in terms of how we handled it, I think we handled it the way it should have been handled. Unless the American people genuinely think that the professionals in the CIA, the FBI, our entire intelligence infrastructure are less trustworthy than the Russians, then people should pay attention to what our intelligence agencies say.
As for anyone questioning why a new assessment was ordered, they were quickly silenced. This from a late December 2016. Quote, due to the ODNI whistleblowers questioning his leadership about why an IC assessment was being created that contradicted multiple IC assessments, the whistleblower is immediately removed from emails regarding the drafting of Obama-ordered IC assessment. Former FBI Director James Comey had no problem sticking by the intelligence community.
There should be no fuzz on this whatsoever. The Russians interfered in our election during the 2016 cycle.
He was also in the room. So you have Comey, Clapper, McCabe, Loretta Lynch. Who else was in there? All these high officials. Joe Biden was in there when Obama said, I don't like this assessment, even though they're all consistent saying that there was no meddling. Why don't you guys work with some other agencies and come up with something else? Reassess. So Brennan went and wrote one that said that he used Hillary Clinton's information, rewrote it, and said that Russia did, in fact, meddle in the 2016 election. Just lied. Outright lie. And we've heard about this ever since. Trump's buddies with Putin. He helped him get in the office. They've been saying this the whole time. It's been a lie the whole time. And we just found out because they declassified all the documents proving that it was a lie.
Did it with purpose. They did it with sophistication. They did it with overwhelming technical efforts. And it was an active measures campaign driven from the top of that government. There is no fuzz on that. It is a high confidence judgment of the entire intelligence community.
The entire intelligence community came to that conclusion, except for they didn't. And I don't know how you can testify in front of Congress like that and just outright lie. I don't know how he's not held in contempt or perjury or something, because it's clearly a lie. We now know it. There's proof now. There's emails. There's all these cables. There's proof. We now know for a fact that it wasn't true. All the other IC assessments said something different, except for that one. Why?
There was no collusion. There's no Russia. It was all made up by the Democrats. They're the ones that colluded with Russia.
President Trump.
Wait, just lie.
So this, again, this is how the media pushes things. This is back then. This is Morning Joe. You're going to hear him just insist Trump is lying. He's making it up. He's corrupt. Part of Russia. This is what our media was doing. This is insanity. Listen to this.
Lies, just showering down on the president there when he's no collusion, no Russia. That's all. No, there was collusion. There was an attempt at collusion. It's clearly out there.
Didn't
we already
happen.
have the evidence, Mr. President. I don't know if you know it, but in this case, you're the emperor without any clothes. Bumbling fools could laugh at that punchline, but they'd have to be bumbling fools because we already have evidence that there was collusion.
Listen to how he's talking. You have this MSNBC. It's an older crowd. They're listening to this, and he's speaking matter-of-factly. We already have the evidence. This guy's just lies. And it's like, dude, you're the one lying. So let's say he didn't know, right? Shouldn't he be the first one to call out the intel community when it all came out that it was a lie and it was all made up? I looked. There was no show of him being this mad at them for lying to him and having him go up there and make a fool out of himself. Why? You should have been furious. You got up here and made a complete fool out of yourself. Listen to him.
Illegal? No, I don't know. Certainly was an attempt at collusion by you and your sons and everybody around you. No Russia? Yeah, actually, there was a lot of Russia. No Russia? What are you even talking about? What planet do you think we're from? Do you keep insulting your supporters and your followers by saying no Russia? Do you really think they're stupid? Remember, you thought they were stupid and you said that was a 400-pound guy in a room somewhere. Oh, wait. Oh, hold on. The guy that you appointed, your director of national intelligence, said it was Russia.
So this is something that did happen. And I think it was Free Jay in one of my lives that said, hey, how come Trump didn't do all the stuff that he's doing now back then? And I said he hired a lot of bad people. And he was hiring people because he was new off of recommendations. And he didn't know that all these people that he was hiring were part of the swamp, part of the deep state. And they were sabotaging him at every turn. And that allowed idiots like this to say, you hired him. You hired this guy. You hired this guy. They said this. They said this. This is your intel committee or community. You appointed this person. You appointed this person. And it gives credibility to what he's saying. But then when you find out it's all wrong, where is your recanting of all of this? If I were him and I went on this big tirade like this, I would have done a full episode playing this and then reacting to myself and apologizing to your people. Do you think they're stupid? Everything he's saying can be flipped right back on him now, because now we know everything he says in this clip is wrong.
Guess what? The person you put in charge of the Department of Homeland Security said, yes, there was Russia interfering in the election. The FBI said, yes, there was Russia interfering with the election. The CIA, same conclusion. Guess what? The United States military that you say you support, you support the military. Until their intel arm tells you Russia was involved.
Micah just jumped in. She did her.
As well, and yet you believe the word of Vladimir Putin, a KGB agent. You believe what the KGB agent says instead of everybody that you hired to run the intel community in the United States of America. So you trust Putin, you trust the KGB, you just don't trust the United States.
So smear him and make him look like a traitor. Now, all those people that he hired, they were already working for these 3-letter agencies. And their agencies said it happened. So there's potential that some of these people didn't know. I don't believe that, but there's potential that some of them didn't know. But again, all the anger should be pointed back at the people who did know, who were in that room with Obama and lied to the American people for years. This was, I think it was November, right after the election, and then in January, Obama held that meeting. It was like January, I don't know, right before he had to turn it over to Trump, is when they decided to do this new assessment, and they used that lie from before the last debate, whenever that was, and they just continued with it.
Military. No, actually, guess what? There was collusion. There were attempts at collusion, and there was Russia. Russia tried to interfere with the election. If you don't have to believe me. Please don't. Please don't, because I know it hurts you. You might tweet a nasty tweet or something. You might get, go crazy about that. Why don't you just talk to Dan Coates? You hired him, right? Talk to Dan Coates.
All these people.
Guess what? You can talk to Chris Wray. You hired him. You can talk to Kirstjen Nielsen. You're the one who hired her.
Yeah, she'll say what he wants to hear.
No. Actually, believe it or not, she didn't in this case. She said not only did Russia try to interfere with American democracy in 2016, Kirstjen Nielsen, your director of Homeland Security, said it is an ongoing effort by Vladimir Putin and Russia to interfere with American democracy. And you say, no Russia, what? No Russia, where?
So now, smear him as anti-American. So he was already a traitor before, but now he doesn't believe in democracy. And look at the smiles. They were so sure of themselves. He should have been the most angry person when this story came out, that the whole Russia thing was a lie. He should have been furious, because look at how stupid he looks now. It's only like 4 years ago. Oh, it had to be over 4 years ago, because this was when Trump was in office. You should be furious when you found out this was all a lie.
Because when it comes to elections, when it comes to your election, there was Russia involved, and you and your sons and your campaign staff, you
smearing
guys
everybody.
were all so eager to hear from Russia. You were mighty hall with Russia. It was, let's make a deal.
If Republicans continue this line of thinking.
So now, this is him right before Trump got in the second time. So this is when they found out that Trump was running again. And he was mad. But again, they base it off of Russia from the elections before, which we now know is all a lie. But listen to how he talks. What's Trump going to do to democracy, Joe?
If they continue their support for Donald Trump, they needn't fool themselves. A second Trump administration would destroy the Department of Justice, would destroy the FBI, would destroy the federal government's rule of law, would destroy judicial independence. It would destroy the third branch of America's government. It would rip to shreds Madisonian democracy.
So Trump would end America as we know it. Now, he destroyed the swamp, and he's still destroying the swamp. But listen to this. And there are people that were watching this, believing this. And now here we are, 9 months into his term. Is America destroyed? Every metric shows that it's doing better. But listen to how him and, of course, Al Sharpton. Listen to how they're talking.
They need to understand what they're doing, and perhaps they do. I'm just trying to figure out what is so important about this former reality TV host that they're willing to literally throw away Madisonian democracy to defend him.
So if you vote for Trump, you don't believe in democracy. This is his position. This is why he had to go do that dinner with Trump when he got elected, because he knew all the stuff that he was saying.
That is what really has troubled me. Is that
Really?
it's
Al
clear
Sharpton.
that you can have political debate, those of us consider on the left, those on the right. But when you see what is going on now, I think the New York Times has a story about it this morning, where you have the actual institutions of government that would be totally altered by the politics of today, particularly if Trump were to win. I mean, are these people really saying that's what they want to advocate? The absolute destruction of the Justice Department as we know it and all of the institutional law pillars as we know it, because that's where they're going. They are undermining the very principles that the country was founded on, and that is democracy as opposed to autocracy. And I think that is one thing to be caught up in the heat of a campaign. Is another thing to say that I want to completely overhaul how we govern and what we stand for as a nation. And that is the line they have began to cross.
This was supposed to be news. This was a news program talking like this, trying to persuade Americans not to vote for a guy they don't like. Like, they really, honestly, they should have gotten paid from the campaign of Joe Biden and Kamala Harris when this happened, because this is insanity. This is not news at all. This is not.
In the politics of some of those that are running in the Republican primaries.
And for what? And for what,
For
Mika?
what?
To lose again.
I know.
To lose again. I know they're looking at polls and no, he loses. He loses every single year. And he has since 2017. So they're willing to throw out the rule of law. They're willing to just ignore all of this to nominate a guy who's going to lose again.
Well, and they're also willing just to throw out common decency. Do you want this person running our country, making choices, representing us?
That's a deeply disturbing thing. Is they have actually convinced themselves that it's a witch hunt.
This is supposed to be news. Listen how they're talking to their own audience. Now, to be fair, most people on the right don't watch them. We watch them to laugh and to hear stuff like this so that we can play it like I am right now. This is their predictions on the election. He's a loser. He's going to lose. He's a despicable human being. He hates democracy. Evil, evil, evil.
Choosing a failed reality TV host and a failed politician over America's rule of law.
He broke every record. He won every single swing state. And here they are again, confidently wrong. This guy's always wrong.
Over the judiciary. Over Madisonian democracy. And it's just the further we get away from this moment, the more horrific it's going to look.
President Obama and his team, he directed a manufactured piece of intelligence that detailed not if, but how Russia tried to influence the outcome of the United States election that President Trump won in November of 2016. This document was then used as the foundation for everything that came next.
Director of National Intelligence Tulsi Gabbard offering documents this week which she believes implicate former President Obama as the instigator of what Republicans have long called the Russia hoax.
So these again were the people who were being charged or investigated. And I just put it back in there as a reminder because now we're going to move on to Leticia James.
Let me ask you about.
Actually, no. So he's going to talk about going after all these corrupt politicians. And then we're going to talk about Leticia James.
Are you going to be looking into, Cash and Pam, any potential collusion between the DOJ, Leticia James, the novel legal theory of Alvin Bragg or Nathan Wade or Fani Willis and the DOJ? Is that something? Has anything come up? Is there any way to determine whether or not evidence was destroyed in any of these cases?
Well, there's always a way to determine that. I don't want to comment on that specific case right now for a reason. I don't want to get ahead of the Department of Justice on that. But I want to say this. You know, the FBI obviously has the public corruption portfolio. And yes, if you are a corrupt politician out there, if you are engaged in behavior, you know what you're doing, we're going to find you. I promise. No one is going to get off. The days of selecting and putting your partisan bias on and taking care of your friends, those days are over.
This lady in the middle and the top, her name's Leticia James, New York AG, ran on getting Trump. That's what she did. Look at the smiles on all of their faces.
The suit will continue, whether he's president or not. And so after January 20th at 12 o'clock, our investigation will continue, Joy.
There's no way a potential pardon for Trump or his three eldest kids would shield them from anything you're investigating. Am I right? That's what you just said, I believe.
Correct. He cannot pardon himself. What he could do is step down and allow the Vice President Pence, to pardon him. In all likelihood, I suspect that he will pardon his family members.
Listen to her. This is an AG. She said, in all likelihood, Trump would pardon all of his family members. Who ended up doing that? This is an AG for the whole state of New York.
His children, his son-in-law, and individuals in his administration, as well as some of his close associates. And then I suspect at some point in time, he will step down and allow the vice president to pardon him. Now,
how does she come to that conclusion? I suspect this is what he's going to do. I think this is what he's going to do. How do you come up with this stuff? She literally just made it up. And this is how she ran her office. Runs? Is she still? I don't know if she's still there. This is how she ran her office at the time. She just makes up a story and then she'll prosecute that. Everything that Biden did, except for stepping down and having the VP pardon you when they get in power. But all the other stuff Biden did.
now, it's important to understand he is pardoned from federal crimes, but he is not pardoned from state crimes. Last year, I introduced a bill in the state legislature which would close the pardon loophole so that individuals such as the President of the United States would not evade justice.
I didn't know an AG can introduce a bill. That's interesting. I did not know that. So you heard what she just said. Let me change this to in New York. Because that's all right. This lady is insane. So she's just making stuff up. Once again, my question was, can an AG introduce a bill to state legislature? No. What is she talking about? It says no. She cannot directly introduce a bill to New York State legislature. Only elected members of the state Senate. Yeah, that's how it's supposed to be. She can propose the bill, who can draft it and introduce it themselves, but she's a lawyer. She knows the difference between, hey, I think we should do this, and an actual introduction, because that's on the floor. So she just made something up. I just caught her in a lie. This lady.
That we have this check on president dates, step down and allow the vice president to pardon him. Now, it's important to understand he is pardoned from federal crimes, but he is not pardoned from state crimes. Last year, I introduced a bill in the state legislature which would close the pardon loophole so that individuals such as the president of the United States would not evade justice. It's important that we have this check on presidential powers. And in the legislature, the state legislature, I'm so happy they passed that bill, and it is now the law in the state of New York. President Trump cannot avoid justice in the great state of New York.
She just lied. Anyway.
New York State Attorney General Leticia James speaking exclusively with our Aaron Katursky, insisting she will collect that civil fraud fine, even if it means seizing some of his assets.
If he does not have funds to pay off the judgment, then we will seek judgment enforcement mechanisms in court, and we will ask the judge to seize his assets. We are prepared to make sure that the judgment is paid to New Yorkers. And yes, I look at 40 Wall Street each and every day.
Each and every day. She was on the hunt. It's clear. She's lying, saying she's introducing bills on the Senate floor or their legislative, I don't know what they call it in New York. Just making up stuff. I'm going to get him. He can't hide. I think, and I speculate, he's going to pardon all of his kids and his family around him. And then he's going to step down and then he's going to have the vice president take over his role and then pardon him. She just made all of this stuff up in her head. And how do you run an entire Justice Department like that, of a whole state? She's just making stuff up, lying. Wild. But that lawsuit's gone. The settlement is gone, not the lawsuit. The settlement is gone. It's over.
President is celebrating a major legal victory with a New York appeals court throwing out a roughly $500 million civil judgment against him.
I had a victory today. They stole $550 million from me with a fake case, and it was overturned. They said this was a fake case. It's a terrible thing, but that's a nice victory, I mean, it's not bad.
The ruling's a huge blow for New York Attorney General Leticia James, a Democrat who brought the case in 2022, accusing Trump and his family real estate business of inflating his net worth to get better terms on loans. James plans to appeal, and she highlights the ruling that Trump committed fraud still stands, writing yet another court has ruled that the president violated the law and that our case has merit.
So the judge suspended, or I don't think he suspended the sentence. He just didn't sentence him. The sentence is gone. Trump will never be sentenced for all of this. The money that he was supposed to pay, supposed restitution to the state of New York, it's over. Now she wants to appeal. She's insane. She's insane, but she's in trouble. I didn't put it in here. She's in legal trouble. I was going to do just an individual video on it. She's got some stuff going on with mortgages and using properties that other people are also claiming. She's in trouble herself. She's under investigation because she's not just crazy. She's crooked, apparently. I don't know. Allegedly. I'm not going to say it. Yeah, I am going to say it. I believe something's going to come out about her. And there was no victim. Yeah, that was the whole reason why this never made sense. There was never a victim to all the people who loaned him money got their money back with interest. She just made stuff up. The banks were saying, well, we got our money back. I mean, this is kind of something people do, but they still had to do their own assessments of these properties. The weirdest thing is the property was in Florida. She made a crime, cut and pasted it together. Alvin Bragg did the same thing. This is just what they do. They're corrupt. And then when you look at them and find out they're corrupt, they say, "Well, you can't come after me. This is political retribution." All right.
Two well-placed sources familiar with the probe tell Fox News that New York Attorney General Leticia James and her office is under investigation by the DOJ here in Washington. We're told that Attorney General Pam Bondi signed off on the probe. Subpoenas were sent to James's office, and there is a grand jury investigation underway in the New York State capital of Albany. The specific investigation, my colleague Jake Gibson, Ashley Oliver, and myself are being told involves deprivation of rights, which in plain language means someone in a position of legal authority violating someone else's constitutional or legal rights. Those sources tell Fox News the DOJ is going after James because she took then former President Donald Trump to court, quote, simply because she didn't like him and campaigned on getting him. DOJ, led by Bondi, believes she violated his First Amendment rights dealing with free speech. James has said before she believed Trump inflated his net worth to get good deals on loans from lenders and other financial benefits. Ms. James won in a court judgment of over $450 million against the Trump organization. Trump is appealing, and it's pending. The entire scope of the grand jury probe in Albany, Dana, is unclear. Grand juries are secretive, but we've learned from these well-placed sources it stems from a recent strike force set up inside the Justice Department to investigate an alleged plot to tie Trump to Russia in 2016.
So everything came from what we now know is a lie. Yeah. So what's crazy is, I don't know if you remember Judge Merchan and her were devaluing Mar-a-Lago, saying that he had inflated numbers there too. They were including Mar-a-Lago in those numbers. That's in Florida. It's Merchan had no business allowing that to be part of this lawsuit. None of it made sense. They were literally fishing for something to get him on. And just like everything, they were creating felonies just so they can say that he was going down on 34 felony, whatever they said.
Sources say that strike force has expanded to other topics. Now, to recap, the Justice Department has initiated grand jury proceedings in Albany, New York, against the Empire State Attorney General Leticia James. But remember, this is important. A grand jury simply decides if there's enough evidence to indict. To be clear, we are told this is very early in the process, and no one, as I speak to you right now, is facing any charges at this time. Fox News reached out to Attorney General James's office multiple times, but we've yet to hear back.
So this one's interesting to me. I'll probably be doing a live on this one. Ilhan Omar, in 1 year, somehow jumped, both of them, her and her husband, somehow their income went from $51,000 to $30 million in 1 year. I did lives on Nancy Pelosi and what she does. But this, she has no position. She's not a speaker. She has no position to be like, I need to see what they did. I need details on this one because I don't know how that's possible. This is the ultimate corruption. And this has been going on for way too long in the House of Representatives and Senate, to be fair. I need to know how that's, I mean, she makes $175,000 a year. Actually, there's a, hold on, let me see. Yeah, so she makes $175,000 a year. She's been in office 8 years. Now her new total net worth is $83 million. Can somebody explain that? I would love an explanation. Because that 8 years at $175,000 came out to $1.4 million before taxes. So how do we account for the other $82.5 million? Or $81.5 billion? How is this humanly possible? Who is paying this woman, and what are they paying her with, and what is going on? Because if I'm looking at this and I'm in the Department of Justice, I need to figure out how this is possible. Because she's the one who files, they filed their financials. So in that first year, going from $51,000 to $30 million, it's a pretty significant jump. I don't know how that doesn't spark investigation. She's now worth $83 million between her and her husband. Remember, she's the one who always cries racism. She found a married man, a married white man. It took him from his wife. Great woman, great woman. Anyway, that's all I really have for today. Corruption is never going to end. But if people don't say anything or do anything about it, that makes it worse. And all it does is compound. It just gets worse and worse and worse and worse and worse. As you can see, we're now to the point where a woman who's not even a citizen can come here using her brother, claim he's her husband. Actually, I think one of her brothers just got arrested for immigration fraud. But anyway, she can use family members and they can try to get each other in this country illegally by defrauding the U.S. government. And then that same person can become House representative. And then 8 years later be worth $83 million, with $30 million of it being made in 1 year. I would love to see what lobbies that she meets. I would love to see how this is possible. Why is nothing coming out of this? I think this is going to be a big story. We'll see. We'll see. I'm Mo Speaks. If you're new here, please like, subscribe, share. I'm excited about that story because she's one of the more detestable people in Congress. She's racist. She says horrible things, and then anyone who says anything back to her, she uses that. And she smears them as evil racists. That's all I got. Thank you for coming in, Dishing Dirt. KTC, thank you. Miss Eve, Lester, the YouTube god, thank you, sir. Small G. You got to change it to small G. Who else was in here? Uncle L. I appreciate you guys. Amber C. Thank you guys so much for coming in. I will be going over Chicago next. I need to see how Trump is planning on doing that. Because he only really has power to enforce over federal jurisdiction. So I guess I don't know how he's going to do it. I'm really curious to see how he's going to do that. They need it because, like I said earlier, 54 people were shot yesterday in the city of Chicago. In one city, 6 or 8, I don't remember the number. People were actually unalived, but 54 shot in one day. Something's got to be done, and the people of Chicago are speaking up. So that's going to be my next live. I do want to talk to somebody. We'll see. I got to figure out this other one. I want to do one on faith. I want to find an atheist or agnostic and just talk to him because I've been hearing some things. I'm like, wait a minute, that's not Christian, and I would like to have a conversation about that. Just to ask questions. I'm not trying to debate. I'm not trying to argue, but I'm increasingly seeing things that are not Christian that are being attributed to Christians when they're Old Testament things, Old Covenant. Anyway, again, I'm Mo Speaks. Like, subscribe, share. We're almost at 590 subs. Thank you guys so much. I appreciate you all. Let me make sure I'm not forgetting anyone or disrespecting anyone by not reading out a Cash App. I am not. Thank you guys so much. I appreciate you all. As always, thank you.